Hello and welcome back to our YouTube channel. My name is Nerissa and I am a mom to 3 children. My middle child is 12 years old and he is on the autism spectrum. He has got other conditions that he has been diagnosed with along the way. ADHD, Tourette's syndrome, learning difficulty, anxiety, and we do support him to thrive and to live as independent as he can. In today's video, I want to talk about how autism affects the brain. How autism affects the brain, or how the brain is affected by autism. Remember, we always say autism is the way the brain is wired. So I want to focus on this question because I come across this question so many times. They've even been some questions in my inbox, and lot at times I get this one. And I want to explain or to respond to this question from my experience, lived experience as a mom to an autistic child, and also the things that I've learned along the way. I'll try to respond to this question not in a scary way, and obviously not in a medical way, because I am not a medical professional, and it's just a mom's explanation, so that maybe another mom there, another caregiver out there, another person supporting an autistic individual can also have an understanding of this condition, a little bit more understanding of this condition. So let's get into that and see how much we can learn and how we can benefit from this information. So firstly, let's clear one of the biggest misunderstandings. Autism does not mean something is wrong with your child's brain. No. Autism is not a disease. It's not an illness. It's the way the brain is wired. Your child's brain just works differently, not badly. It does not work badly. Believe you me, that child, to them, everything in their world, everything is perfectly perfect. And that's even 100% correct. According to them, everything is perfect. Their brain is processing information the way it's supposed to do, according to them. Because remember, they don't have another world. They don't have another set of brain to understand things from our perspective. They just have that set of brains. And that brain that they have is wired in a specific way for them to process information in that particular way. So it's not a disease. It's the way their brain is wired. Simple. And it does not mean there's something wrong with the child. It's just that they have their own world. They live in their own bubble. And here and there, we have to understand their world. We have to understand how they process information. We have to understand how they interact. We have to understand how they process information sensory-wise, so that we can support, so that we can encourage them, so that we can reduce the sensory input that triggers their meltdowns. So in doing that, we now understanding that autism does not mean something is wrong with your child's brain. Your child's brain just works differently. It's like having two different phones. One may be Android and the other one may be from Apple, an iPhone. That does not mean if Android is not working the same way that Apple or iPhone is working, that does not mean Android has got something bad. It's just that it's wired differently. That is just the simple, is the way that phone is wired that is different from the other phone. And because of that, you will definitely have different output, because what is happening in the central processing unit of those two different gadgets is different, and you're going to have a different output. Both phones work, both can do amazing work, but they just do that in their own unique ways. That is the example I wanted to use for us to understand. And then when you look at these individuals, for us to understand that it's not like something is bad about this way the brain is wired. There's nothing bad. It's just that us, we didn't understand that. We were not trained to accommodate that kind of the wiring in the brain. So we end up thinking there's something wrong with these individuals. There's nothing wrong. We just have to support them the way they are and help them thrive and flourish in whatever they want to do. Now that we understand that the brains is basically a different wiring, a different central processing unit behind the scenes, we want to understand how does the autistic brain processes the world. What happens in their world? Let's get a quick view of what happens in their world. Autistic brain takes the world with more intensity. Sounds may feel louder than it does for the neurotypical brain. They might take in the sound more louder than a neurotypical individual. Lights may look brighter than they are for the neurotypical brain. That means now the reaction to those two things already is going to be it will look exaggerated from a neurotypical brain point of view, because if you are in a room and there is lighting in that room, for what you think it's okay, what your brain can tolerate, for the autistic brain it might just be too bright lights. That's why sometimes when they're having meltdowns, we are encouraged to reduce lighting in case their brain is finding that lighting to be too much or too brighter for them. Also, if where we are there is sounds, the autistic brain might be processing that sound more intensely. It could be coming too much. It could be too hard for the eardrum of this particular individual whose autistic brain is processing that sound. So it could be too much and too close and just very much irritating. So we end up having now these reactions where the individual is feeling overwhelmed because they are processing the lighting that is too much. They are processing the noise, the sound that is coming in. They are processing it and it's too much because their brain takes in the sensory input intensively. So then we end up having meltdowns. And when we have meltdowns, you hear the advice to say, reduce noise or get out of a noisy place, because already that brain is getting overwhelmed with the noise. The sound of a fridge running, a refrigerator running, can be just more than what you and me hear it. The sound of a microwave can be something huge and very disturbing to an individual on the autism spectrum, because their brain, that noise is good enough to irritate them. That noise might be too much. For an autistic brain, the sound of things that we think they are subtle, the things that we think this noise it's bearable, it can be too much. Now, let alone, we haven't even spoken about noises like the vacuum cleaner, the aeroplane passing in the sky. We haven't even spoken about maybe the siren of an ambulance or a fire truck passing by. Imagine we're just talking of noises that we think are simple. Noises of a microwave that is warming food, noises maybe of the oven or the smoke sensor. All that can be something that is huge for the autistic brain to process. On the same note about the parts of the brain and how autism impacts the brain, or how the brain is impacted by autism, there are parts of the brain which are responsible for the speech and for communication. Remember, speech and communication is two different things. So there are parts of the brain that are specifically responsible for those aspects. And these parts in autistic individuals, these parts work differently than the way these parts work in neurotypical individual. This doesn't mean your child does not understand what is happening. Many autistic kids who don't speak do understand the language that you use very well. Whatever native language that you use in your household, where their place of residence, whatever language that is being used there, they will be understanding it. They might just not be able to respond to it. I always tell people about what happened to me, what happened in my life when I was around 3 years of age. And at that time, people could think that you are young, but you can interpret the situation. I could tell you how the situation was. And I remember very well what was happening during that time. But people would just be looking at you and thinking she is a minor. She doesn't understand all that. But not speaking does not mean you are not understanding. Not communicating does not mean you are not understanding. So we have said many autistic kids who doesn't speak do understand the language, just that they don't know how to express themselves. So that's where now we need to introduce them to using gestures, pictures, body language can be their strongest voice. So this is where now you need to introduce other ways of communicating so that you equip them and they are able to communicate. Then let's also talk about the part of the brain that is responsible for social understanding or for socializing. That is a part of the brain that helps us understand things like facial expressions. There's a part of the brain that is responsible for that. Facial expressions that makes you understand the tone of voice, the changes in tones of voice, that makes you understand that, oh, the person is upset. The person who is talking to me, they are excited. And also just the social rules or the social cues. That makes you understand the importance of the eye contact. And that part of the brain might not be sending communication to say, this is why we need to look at people in the eye when we're communicating with them, because that is important to do, and it represents honesty, it represents that you are confident. To the autistic brain, you don't have to look people in the eye. Why should you look at people in the eye? Maybe it's even intimidating, not because they are necessarily shy. Let's talk about emotional regulation. The other part again of the brain that is responsible for emotional regulation, the parts of the brain that can help us to calm down, to organize feelings, they work differently in autistic brains. A small change in routine is very huge for an autistic brain. You cannot expect the same reaction for a small change in routine from a neurotypical brain, and then you put an autistic brain on the side and expect the same reactions. That's why we end up having autistic meltdowns, because that sudden change in routine, that sudden trigger, that build up of sensory overload can trigger a meltdown. And I did a video where I was explaining what are autistic meltdowns, which basically means that it's a cry for help. So we realize that autistic brains, when they cannot cope, they then get into a mode where they're crying for help. But with a neurotypical brain, you can teach, you can train emotional regulations. Meltdowns are not tantrums. They are not tantrums. A tantrum is an attention-seeking technique that is done by individuals to get their way out. But a meltdown is a cry for help, because that is the nervous system of an individual who is autistic saying, I'm overwhelmed, please help. It's not something that deserves to be punished. An autistic meltdown should not be punished. Then the other thing I want to talk about with regards to the parts of the brain is the strengths of the autistic brain. We want to talk also about some of the things that people who are on the autism spectrum are very good at. It's very important that we talk about strengths, because sometimes we keep focusing on the so sad, sob stories, but we want to talk also about the strengths of the autistic brain. Most individuals on the autism spectrum, their brain has got an excellent memory, and they are honest in their communicating. They just tell things bluntly. They don't know how to hide or to lie. They tell things as they are. And they also have a very strong focus. I'm talking about the strengths that have been researched and found in autistic individuals. They also have got deep passions. Once they've developed interest in something, they have deep passions. Whatever they do, they put their 100% in. And they also have got amazing problem-solving skills. They are creative and they pay attention to detail. Your child's brain may struggle with some things, but it shines brightly in other areas. Like, for example, it has been known that autistic individuals, some of them are very great in these areas that I've just highlighted. So we need also to understand that there are very brilliant things about the autistic brains. Then the other things that I want to talk about is what us as moms can do to support our children. We don't need advanced training. You don't need medical training to understand your child. You just need to be interested in understanding your child. Yes, you can do your research, you can do more findings, but you don't need to go to a school for you to understand your own child. You can study your child, make your child a course that you want to study and understand. And what helps the most for us to understand our children is being patient. Also develop a clear routine using simple language. Give time to process the instructions, or if there is a dialogue going on, give time for them to process. Do not give pressure when you are communicating with them. Allow them time to process what you are saying and to make an executive decision with regards to what they can say in response to the conversation that you will be having. Then, last but not leastly, when you understand your child's brain, everything gets much better. When you get better in understanding your child, even the child themselves, they also get better. In closing, I want to say autism doesn't mean broken. It just means different. Autism does not mean broken. It just means different. Your child's brain is unique, capable, and full of potential. You are not alone. You are doing a great job. And your child's future can be bright, happy, and fulfilling. Have a great time to understand your child. Take time to understand your child so that you know how best you can support them. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to your feedback. Please do let me know your thoughts. Please leave some feedback in the comment section, and see you in the next video. Thank you very much.